And welcome everybody. Please go ahead and come on in and share if you will. Let everybody know. We'll get started in just a second. If you have any problems on Periscope, please know that you can always go to a YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is just Susan Knowles. Find us there, and hopefully today will be absolutely picture perfect. That would be wonderful. That would be my hope for today. All right, so let me go ahead and welcome you all here. Good to see you. And let's see if I can get my chat up and running. Hopefully, I will be able to do that and see everybody. I can. Everybody, Robin, if you could just start talking, let me see if I have chat with you. That'd be great. As you know, Bill is not here today. Bill is out in the woods someplace with his family, enjoying his time away in Sukkot, and so celebrating. I think he's going to be gone all week. Thank you, Robin. Everybody else is coming in. Hello, good to see everybody. Please come on in. And make sure that you know that during this broadcast that you can ask all the questions and make all the comments that you want. I will try to see each and every one of them. So it's good to see you. Glad to have you here. Yes, on time. Everybody is on time. And let me see if I can. There we go. Shalom, Jonathan. Good to see you. Good to see everybody. As comments start coming in, I'll start reading them off. And then this will let me know also if my chat is working when I see all of your comments. Okay, so I'm going to get started. Today I want to talk to you about Syria and Turkey and the Kurds and what's going on. I think we've gotten a lot of misinformation out there, and mainstream media is not going to tell you anything because they don't want you to know. They're going to make it look as though President Trump is horrible. He's done this horrible thing. Greetings to all. Shalom. Hey, David. Hey, Eternity. Hello. And shalom to you as well. And so I want to kind of clear things up for you and give you an idea of what is really going on so that you're going to know. So that it's not going to be a big surprise and you're not going to keep continuing to think that, President Trump just did this horrible thing. I've heard, hey, Candace, good morning. Wish I could join him at Sukkot. Well, maybe next year, Jonathan. Maybe next year. Hey, Kelly, wonderful day. Blessings from New Mexico. Good to see you here. Glad that you're here when joining us. So basically, I want to start with giving you kind of a historical perspective, so you can see what this is all about. Now, let's start. Unfortunately, I got to start back here from a long time ago that many of us would rather forget, and that is during the time of the Obama administration. Now, we know that a long time ago, on September the 10th, 2010, President Obama announced his intentions to bomb ISIS targets in Syria. Hey, Linda, good to see you. Barry, good to see you. Shalom from Parkland, Florida. Good to see you. So everything started basically back in September 2010. It's a long time ago, I know. People, like I said, really have wanted to forget. We didn't start moving into Syria until 2011. Now, in 2014, after significant pressure, Obama asked Congress for funds to train and equip approximately 15,000 rebels in Jordan. That would be the rebels that we helped in Jordan. So I want to make sure that you remember that this is what he did in 2014. A lot of people, again, forget what happened and how he was responsible. Now, this trying to get the 15,000 people and get them trained in Jordan was a miserable failure, because after he did this, oh, you're welcome, RLU. Sometimes we do need that historical accounting of things because we forget. But when he took those people over to Jordan and trained them, 15,000 of them, barely any of them returned to fight. So we spent all of this time, all of this money, all of this effort in training people over in Jordan to come back over to Syria and to fight. And they're like, no, thank you. I don't want to have anything to do with this. And they were gone. In 2017, reportedly nearly by this time, and I think people forget this too, that by 2017, 17, more than 500,000 people had been killed. That is a huge number of people. Hey, Tia, good to see you. And I think people have forgotten that too. But as you recall, that's why a lot of people wanted to get out of Syria. I mean, a lot. Think about that. 500,000 people. That's a lot of people. And so we seem to forget that. We don't think about that today. You know, when they're sitting there criticizing President Trump, as you recall, as part of his campaign, he said, we are going to bring people, we're going to bring our troops home from Syria. We have been in Syria since 2011. Time to bring the troops home. Now, let me continue. And don't forget, it was John McCain and Lindsey Graham, both on the Senate Armed Services Committee, that argued for rebel opposition forces, fighters, to be armed to help beat back a Syrian government with close ties to Iran. Hey, Booker T. Hey, Carol Linda, good to see you. So remember that too, because that's very important. By 2013, Americans wanted out of Syria. Everybody's saying, let's bring the troops home. We've been there long enough. We've been there 2 years, and people wanted to bring the troops home. And people were opposed to airstrikes. Now, also know that by what Obama did, he, as you recall, Russia came in and said, United States, we don't need you. Kind of stand down. We'll take care of this. We'll fight ISIS. We'll do the airstrikes. You just kind of sit over here. And Obama kind of bowed down. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Putin, we'll go ahead and we'll do that. We'll let you do what you're doing, and we'll stay out of it. By doing that, he allowed Russia to come into Syria and get a pretty good stronghold into Syria. And he basically started at that point kind of setting the stage for Iran to come into Syria, because it was for the Iranian nuclear deal, which I believe happened somewhere around 2014, 2015. So when that happened, when Iran got $150 billion sent to them from the United States, signed, sealed, delivered, it's all yours. They started moving into Syria along with Russia with all of their money, and started trying to put up military bases and getting a stronghold there. Iran did, which goes against Israel, right? Their sworn enemy is the United States and Israel. And so that's why Israel has been going in there and having to at times blow up the military bases that Iran is trying to make. So my point is that we had a catastrophe on our hands in Syria that people seem to want to forget that we had going on. So that's why I want to talk to you about this historical perspective. Now, does anybody remember all of this that I'm telling you, or is this something, foreign that you don't remember? Anybody? Because, I mean, this is really important to understanding this. Hey, Cheryl, blessings to you too. This is really important to understand where we're going. Now, I wanna move forward a little bit. A lot of people missed this. They weren't listening, watching the news. They were watching mainstream media, and they weren't watching what was going on in the Middle East. Now, this is a picture of President Trump with the president of Turkey, Erdogan. And this is what took place. And I don't know that if you knew anything about this. Danielle says, I remember what was going on in Syria. So what happened, let's take you back to September 5th, 2019, okay? Nothing was talked about it in mainstream media. Nothing that I could find at all. But what happened on that date, it was announced that President Erdogan of Turkey said that, look, I'm going to resettle 1 million refugees that are in northern Syria. That's the Kurds and other people there. And I'm going to reopen the route for all the migrants into Europe if I don't receive any adequate international support for this plan. Because I'm sick and tired, basically, is what he's saying. I'm sick and tired of having to take care of these people. What happened was these people came over, a lot of them came over from Europe to fight in this conflict, and they just stayed there. And the people of Europe said, "We don't want them back. We don't want to. You take care of them. They're your problem now. We're not even going to help you pay for them, according to Turkey." And the United States was having to pay out of pocket too for having, we have military over there. Supposedly we have about 1,000 people, and we had 50 sitting in there, right in the northern Syria area. And so we're probably, I don't know if we were paying for any of the other people because they came from Europe. But, here's Turkey saying, we're done with it. We're tired of taking all the responsibility. Linda said Obama never admitted his mistake either. No, absolutely not, Linda, because he didn't want anybody to know he had made a mistake. Because, that's kind of the way he rolled, right? He never admitted that he made a mistake. So Erdogan went on to say, he said, "We are saying we should form such a safe zone." He wanted to have a safe zone. "That we as Turkey can build towns here in lieu of the tent cities that carry them to safe zones." So apparently there were a lot of tent cities. Turkey was willing to have a safe zone for the Kurds set up there and have people from Europe provide money to help build these homes and to help provide for them, the same people that had come from Europe. He said, "Give us logistical support and we can go build housing into the northern Syria. This way we can provide them with humanitarian living conditions. This either happens or otherwise we're going to open the gates. We're done with it. We're wanting to move on. We're tired of taking care of all these people, spending all of this money and getting absolutely no help from you." This is what his message was. He said, "Either you will provide support or excuse us, but we're not going to carry this weight alone. And we have not been able to get help from the international community, namely the European Union. Under a deal agreed between the EU and Turkey." Now, this is something, again, that I don't think that anybody has really been told. But there was an agreement between the EU and Turkey in March 2016 that Ankara agreed to stem the flow of migrants into Europe in return for billions of euros in aid. So basically what Erdogan said was, we'll keep people from coming back to Europe. We'll keep them here. We'll let them be in this safe zone. We'll build them houses. But you've got to help. You've got to help us financially. And so earlier in the month, Erdogan had said he'd not seen any acceptable plans. Nobody was going to help. Nobody offered any help from Europe. Jonathan said the longer Trump is president, all the left and the Democrats are being exposed. That's true. Absolutely. His agenda was for conflict, talking about Obama, Linda said. Absolutely. So Erdogan basically, this was in early September. And so the United States had been talking to Turkey and saying, "Come on, let's work something out. Let's not have this. Let's give it some more time." And Turkey's like, "No, we are done. We are done. We've been taking care of people for long enough. We're going to make a move." Now, I don't know if you remember, but in the beginning, President Trump told them, "Look, Turkey, you have been an ally of ours since 1952. Turkey is a part of NATO, and we have to remember that. Turkey also, we have bases in Turkey where our nuclear weapons are in Turkey. We're not going to get into a war with an ally from NATO that we've had since 1952. We're not going to do it. Plus the fact that we have bases over in Turkey with our people over in Turkey, and we're not going to do it." But President Trump, knowing that Erdogan was going to press forward no matter what, and I believe just like that we do in the United States, this is Turkey's country. And whether we like it or not, they view the Kurds as terrorists. And they have for generations. This isn't just start yesterday. This is a generational conflict between Turkey and the Kurds, the PKK. And they wanted them out. And they said, "We're not going to take care of them anymore." And so just like our border, when we want to protect our border, Turkey felt that they were protecting their border. and Europe did not want the people. That's right, Linda. Linda, they didn't want them back. They're like, they're your problem now. He's like, no, they're not my problem. And it seems like all they want is money and support. Are we really Turkey's ally? Linda, they are a part of NATO since 1952. Nobody's done any different. Nobody has said any different, and nobody is willing to take that on. So for now, they're absolutely our ally. So when President Trump knew that Erdogan was going to go ahead and do what he said he was going to do, which is like open the floodgates and push these people back away from Turkey, President Trump removed our 50 people, our military people that were sitting there in northern Syria, and removed them to another area in Syria. Why did he do that? First of all, he was protecting our 50 people. Second of all, if we were going to stop Turkey, we would have to build up a military presence. So instead of bringing people home, we would have to put more people into Turkey. Now, how many would that have been? I don't know. Maybe 15,000 people, maybe less, a couple of thousand. I don't know. But again, are we really going to sit there? And I know President Trump has said this. Are we really going to sit there and go into battle with Turkey while we still have bases that are open, while we still have our nuclear weapons over in Turkey? To me, that seems a little bit suicidal. The Kurds are more than an ally, Linda said. It goes back further than that. D.C. during Desert Storm, Turkey was legally sending military into Iraq and killing the Kurds because they did not want their Kurds to join in wanting self-governance. Turkey does not act like our ally. Linda, I don't disagree with anything that people are saying, but they're still a part of NATO, and we still have bases over there. We're not going to get into a war with Turkey. We're just not going to do it. It may come down to that someday, and Turkey is supposedly one of the countries in end times prophecy that will be going with Iran, Russia, Turkey will be going in to attack Israel. So sooner or later, something is going to happen with our relationship with Turkey. Now, I want to show you what came out at the very beginning and what was said that, again, it was very short. Mainstream media didn't talk too much about it, and then it was gone. Now this is, let me set this up. Let me get this started. And hold on one second. This is the Defense Joint Chiefs of Staff talking in a press conference about the situation. And here's what he had to say. Let me bring this up for you. Team
to discuss the United States military operations in the Middle East. Today, we will provide you an update on the situation and announce some changes to the U.S. force posture in the region. Beginning with Syria, we oppose and are greatly disappointed by Turkey's decision to launch a unilateral military incursion into northern Syria. This operation puts our SDF partners in harm's way. It risks the security of ISIS prison camps and will further destabilize the region. From the president on down, we have communicated with the Turks on this issue. I spoke with Turkish Defense Minister Akar yesterday to express our strong opposition to Turkey's actions and reiterated the damage this is doing to our bilateral relationship. The chairman has similarly been in communication with his counterpart. As we previously reported, when Turkey notified us of an imminent military operation, we relocated a small contingent of less than 50 special operations soldiers out of the immediate zone of attack. This decision was made to ensure American troops were not caught up in the fighting between Turkish and Kurdish forces. The safety of our men and women in uniform remains our top priority. As such, we are repositioning additional forces in the region to assist with force protection as necessary. The SDF also transferred 2 ISIS militants, known as the Beatles, who were involved in the kidnapping and murder of U.S. and U.K. citizens in Syria to our custody. They are being held in a safe and secure location in the region, but outside of Syria. At this time, we have made no additional changes to our force posture in Syria, but will continue to assess the situation and our troop levels there. To be clear, we are not abandoning our Kurdish partner forces, and U.S. troops remain with them in other parts of Syria. The impulsive action of President Erdogan to invade northern Syria has put the United States in a tough situation, given our relationship with our NATO ally Turkey, who has fought alongside the United States in the past, the Syrian Democratic Forces who helped us destroy the physical caliphate of ISIS, and the safety of U.S. military personnel. Rather than get pulled into this conflict, we put the welfare of our soldiers first, while urging Turkey to forego its operation and working hard with us to address their concerns through the development of a security zone along the border. We remain in close coordination with the Syrian Democratic Forces who helped us destroy the physical caliphate of ISIS. But I will not place American service members in the middle of a long-standing conflict between the Turks and the Kurds. This is not why we are in Syria. We will continue to work with the 80 members of the Defeat ISIS Coalition and the Syrian Democratic Forces to ensure the defeat of ISIS. Turning to Iran. It is clear that the Iranians are responsible for the recent attacks on Saudi Arabian oil facilities.
Let me turn this off. You can hear what he's saying, and basically that, look, we're not working against our allies. You know, the Kurds who have been our friends. We're not working against them. We're not leaving them. We're not giving the green light into Turkey. I've heard that so many times. Gog and Magog war, praying for Turkey every day. I had heard years ago that the majority of the Kurds were Christians. Do you know if this is true? I don't. They were protecting I know they're protecting some of the Christians. There are few Christians over there. Ariel, you said, I'm sharing this cogent analysis on Facebook for others to see and hear. Thanks for your time. You are so welcome. Jonathan said, it's amazing when the left say something and those who follow them believe their lies. Do you think Turkey will turn against us and take over our bases if Russia and Iran back them? I hate to think about this. Hey, Telma. Linda, you know, I think something is, honestly, in my opinion, I think something is going to happen. I think that and we'll get there in just a moment. You know, we're sanctioning Turkey right now, and I think that's going to cause a lot of conflict coming up with us and our ally, Turkey. And again, whether we like to call them our ally or not, they are right now. And until somebody takes that fight up, they're still going to be our ally. But when you hear people say, "Oh, President Trump, he just gave them the green light to go in and kill our Kurd allies," you can hear from the defense secretary that's absolutely not true. Here's the problem, and I want to get there in just a moment. But here's the problem: people think that we have such a huge presence and power over in Syria. And again, going back to the beginning, Obama, when he went in there, he basically turned it over to Russia and Iran. We don't have a big presence over in Syria. We just don't. As I said, also, we have about, from what I know, 1,000 people. We have deliberately tried to stay out. Yeah, and General Eaton said, originally we were supposed to be in Syria for 30 days. That will never be a perfect time. Danielle said, Turkey in the end is part of the 10 nations that will attack Israel. Candace said, I see the USA pulling out of Syria in the future to protect our people. Candace, that's what the president wants to do. That's what the president said that he was going to do when he first came into office, and that's what he's doing. Now, here's what people also said. They said, oh my gosh, this is going to be horrible for the Kurds, because the Kurds, their only choice they're going to have is to go into Syria. Yes. and it's happening. And guess what they're doing? They're making an alliance with the Syrians. What are they doing? The Kurds are carving out. The Kurds don't have a country, by the way, in case you don't know that. They don't have their own country. So what they're doing now is they're creating an alliance with Syria. They're moving into Syria and carving out this little another space for themselves in Syria to be able to stay there. Like they did, they carved out a place for themselves in Iraq to stay there. The Kurds they're nomads. They go different places. And I'll tell you in a minute why this is so important, why everybody who said, oh my gosh, this is a horrible thing, they were wrong, which they typically are. And let's find out who those people are that were wrong, and why, and what they have to do with this. Now, also, before I forget this, Russia, also, who has a big presence in Syria, also did not want Turkey to do what Turkey did. So you had the United States and you had Russia saying, don't do this. And oh, by the way, you had Iran doing it and saying, don't do this, Turkey, stay where you are, let the Kurds stay where they are. And we'll show you in a minute why Iran was so happy to have Turkey not do, not move out and not move the Kurds. Why the Iranians did not want the Kurds to come into Syria. I'll show you that in just a minute. But I also want to show you who it is. You can always tell, I think, how good something is and how good what the president did was correct by who comes against it. Who was the first to get out there and come against it? Well, what do you know? It was Lindsey Graham. He came out at the very beginning and said, I don't know all the details regarding President Trump's decision in northern Syria, but in process of setting up phone calls with Secretary Pompeo, if press reports are accurate, this is a disaster in the making. So we had John McCain's old buddy who was coming out and saying, oh, this is a horrible thing. President Trump, we got to stop him. Of course, before he knew anything that was going on, he just a reflex reaction because he and John McCain wanted our military troops over in Syria. Now, here's another thing that Lindsey said. He goes, if this happens, it will ensure ISIS comeback. It will force the Kurds to align with Assad and Iran. It will destroy Turkey's relationship with the U.S. Congress. It will be a stain on America's honor for abandoning the Kurds. Well, first of all, we're not abandoning the Kurds. Second of all, destroy Turkey's relationship with U.S. Congress. Well, Turkey brought that on themselves. It will force the Kurds to align with Assad and Iran. We'll find out in a moment why the Kurds are not going to align with Iran. So that's wrong. And ensures the ISIS comeback. No, and as President Trump has said, this is going to put the onus on Syria and Turkey to worry about ISIS, and those people over in the Middle East should be the ones that are doing that. Now, Lindsey Graham also said, if this plan moves forward, we'll introduce Senate resolution opposing and asking for reversal of this decision. Expect it will receive strong bipartisan support. And again, you can see who the ones that are opposing this. These are the neocons. These are the left. These are the rhinos. They're opposing it because they like the conflict. They want there to be a conflict over there in Syria. They're getting something out of it. They're continuing Obama's policies. Robin said Lindsey Graham is all over the place. Can't trust him. Hey, Marianne Ortiz, good to see you. Weren't the Kurds supposed to get their own land and country after World War I, a piece of Turkey, but they never happened, Barry said. Turkey, let's see, the critical crying Dems are messaging the poor Kurds and are trying to gain support. Linda Smith said, yeah, Trump's fault. It's always Trump's fault. That's exactly what they want you to think. And then we had someone else who spoke out. Who was that? Well, we had another rhino who was quick. Liz Cheney. Withdrawing U.S. forces from northern Syria is a catastrophic mistake that puts our gains against ISIS at risk and threatens U.S. security. This decision ignores the lessons of 9/11. Terrorists thousands of miles away can and will use their safe havens to launch attacks against us. One of the things that just trying to, again, get support, get the Americans behind it, going, oh my gosh, we can never leave Syria. And then who else did we have? Who else came out? Well, we had another neocon, in my opinion. A lot of people may not think of her that way. Nikki Haley. We must always have the backs of our allies if we expect them to have our back. The Kurds were instrumental in our successful fight against ISIS in Syria. Leaving them to die is a big mistake. # Turkey is not our friend. Some of the things that she's saying there may be true. As we pointed out, sometimes Turkey's not acting as our friend, doesn't act like our friend. But as we've also pointed out, it's part of NATO. And until such that time that changes, Turkey is still considered our ally. How can people see this, Linda said? Well, Linda, you can share the show afterwards and people can see all of this. Rand Paul was interviewed. Yeah, I'm going to be talking about that in a minute, Barry. Her comments upset me, Linda said. Well, but I'll tell you something, Linda. This is showing you who the neocons are. This is showing you who the rhinos are. This is showing you who's against President Trump. Fear-mongering, pure and simple, Maggie said. Absolutely. We had Mitch McConnell who came out. Oh, this. I just wish he'd rethink this. This isn't good. This is bad. No evidence of anything. And again, trying to make it sound like President Trump said, "Okay, Turkey, come on in. We're going to move these Kurds out. We're going to move our people away. You can come on in and kill the Kurds," which is absolutely, you're seeing, absolutely not the truth. That's not what we did. Let me recap, and then anybody came in late. Starting back in September, and probably even before, Erdogan said, we're done. We're done with taking care of these people. The EU is not helping us. International community is not helping us. We have all these people sitting here. We're willing to let them stay here and build homes for them, but you've got to pay us the money that you signed an agreement with us back in 2016 that you said that you would do, and you didn't do it. I can't blame Turkey. I can't, because this is just like our own border. If we have people who we feel are sitting down there on the border that shouldn't be there, that either A, that we feel are our enemies, or B, that we need help in taking care of, and we feel that you should help us, then, why blame Turkey for doing the same thing that we ourselves would do? Hi, Susan from Western Australia. Hi, Gillian. How are you? Give me the definition of neocon, not familiar to me. Linda, these are people who want to have conflicts, who love war, who love going to war. It's what people feared that John Bolton was like. And as we're finding out, John Bolton really wanted to go in and kind of have a war, if you will, a conflict in Iran. And while they were in Syria. And I think that's why President Trump is like, no, you want to do all this stuff. What you're trying to do, in effect, and what will happen is you will just continue to expand our troops into Syria, into this conflict. Yeah, Tia said, good point about it being similar to the border. We're slowly being edged out of the Middle East. And when that happens, taken out of the Middle East, we're looking at disaster. And what will happen to Israel, not good. Candace, I disagree with that, because the Bible has said what will happen with Israel, and God will defend Israel. And we're being taken out of the Middle East because, in my opinion, we shouldn't be in the Middle East. Because we don't, we do these regime changes and all this other stuff, and we get our troops over there and we leave them there. We've been in Syria since 2011. In the Bible, I believe it says that God will put hooks in the mouth of Israel's enemies and draw them closer to the valley of decisions. That's right, Jonathan. The prophecy of Damascus as becoming a heap of ruins had been partially fulfilled. The rest is still to be fulfilled. That's right. That it would be Isaiah 17, Carolinda. And so, this is, if you want to look at it, if this is part of Ezekiel 38 and 39, this is a great thing. This will be a great thing. If you don't believe in Bible prophecy, or if you don't think it's what God wants to do is a good thing, then you won't agree with me. And I'm not saying it is Ezekiel 38 and 39. I don't know. It's looking more and more like it, but at the same time, it could be something that is just setting it up for it to happen someday soon. Now, I want to also show you, President Trump, he said from the very beginning to Turkey, if you do this, we are going to sanction you. This is a statement from President Trump from yesterday regarding Turkey's actions, and telling Turkey basically, hey, we were working on a deal with you for $100 billion trade deal. That's a lot of money. A lot of money. And Turkey basically is ignoring that for now. And they're going to have, sanctions on a lot of different things. The details of which are in that, and though it's hard to read, but more and more sanctions are coming out. Now, I want to show you something else let me bring this up for you really quickly here. This is something that President Trump said, and people kind of have forgotten, I think, what he said. And this is how President Trump, this is how he wants to to bring about what he feels is world peace. And I say this is how he wants to fight wars. He wants to fight them financially. And that's what he's doing. Can we legally sanction Turkey? Yeah, Linda, I don't see why not. Perhaps this is why USA is not mentioned in later prophecy. It could be. We're still in Germany, Kelly said. Yeah, we're in a lot of different places. President Trump said, we have become a far greater economic power than ever before, and we are using that power for world peace. So, in other words, President Trump is saying, we're going to sanction Turkey. We're going to make them stop, not by getting into a conflict with them, not by starting a war, not by bringing more troops into Syria and perhaps having to move our troops out of Turkey and then fight with Turkey, I mean, a total disaster. We are going to use economic sanctions, the power of the purse, to bring about world peace. Now, you know there's not going to be anything such as world peace until God's return. But he is saying, hello from Wilkes-Barre. Sorry you're late. That's okay, Lorraine. But that is, I mean, to me, that is an absolute great strategy that he's doing. Let's not fight. Look what he's done. Look at what he's done to Iran. We gave them $150 billion. Obama did. They had all of that money. And what did we do? We started sanctioning them until we have left them almost broken. And I think in a way they are broken. Probably Iran or Russia is the only reason they're not thoroughly broken. But, you know, the more money they had, the more presence they had, they could go into Israel and hurt Israel. And thank you, Obama, because you set that up, knowingly or unknowingly, to give Iran all of this power and presence in Syria and all of this money to back it up so that they could go in and destroy Israel. Because let's face it, as I said, that's what Iran wants to do. They hate us. The only ones they hate more than Israel are us. Please adjust your volume way too low. You might want to put in your earphones and be able to hear over there. I think everybody else can hear pretty well. So sometimes you have to put in your earphones or adjust your volume because I'm practically yelling into the microphone. So anyway, I think, again, what President Trump did was an amazing thing. Now, I want you to hear from a man. His name is Amir Sarfati. He is over in Israel. He is a Bible teacher. He is a Christian, and he's a Jewish from Israel. He is the founder of beholdisrael.org. Let me bring this up. I have to refresh the page. And I want you to hear what he has to say. He used to be a member of the IDF, and he's talking about President Trump. And if I can get this to come up, and it's very interesting what he had to say. They keep wanting to take him off every time I put it up. I'm not even kidding you. Let me go up here. It's doing it again for whatever reason. Let me find this for you because it is worth hearing if I can get him up here. What he had to say. And I had it all set, and of course, like I said, it takes it down every now and then, so that's why. But I had it up, so I should be able to get it right for you. And again, I like to hear from people who are not sitting right here in the United States because they have their own perspectives, and they can get perspectives because they are there, right? They're there and they're living it right now, and they're not. There's no reason for them to hide things like they do in the United States in our media. Okay, so let me bring it up over here. Taking just a moment. Sorry it's taking such time. But again, I had this all prepared and it was kind of removed again. So let me see if I can get him up here. If I can't, I'll just kind of tell you what he had to say.
Not going to serve the interests of Syria. Iran's not going to serve the interests of Syria. Iran says Turkey should stay within Turkish territory. The Iranian puppet Assad also said, I don't agree to this thing, but nobody asked him, of course. He's a non-issue. Not going to serve the interests of Syria. Iran says Turkey should stay within Turkish territory. The Iranian puppet Assad also said, I don't agree to this thing, but nobody asked him, of course. He's a non-issue here. Ladies and gentlemen, what happened here is merely any betraying anyone. It is actually a way to bring about a Sunni major presence to that northeastern part of Syria that was just so empty and such a place to allow Iranians flow. Not only that, to release America from the duty of having to literally be the guardian of thousands of European passport-holding ISIS terrorists. That's what happened, and you must understand, and people don't understand, America has neither major influence in Syria nor any interest in confronting Turkey to protect the Kurds, because Trump was carefully trying to avoid a war with Turkey, even when the Turks were not that great, because he understands in the big picture, Turkey, a member of NATO, Turkey still in peace with Israel, Turkey still a place that is right in between Europe and Asia, is more important to us as an ally than as an enemy. And so once he realized that the Turks should stay on his side, because look, even in Israel, let me make it very clear, the Israelis are not in love with the Turks, or the Turkish president, may I say. But when we have to deal with who is more of a threat to Israel's existence, Iran or Turkey, it is obvious that it's Iran. Therefore, we're not trying to go to a war with Turkey right now. If anything, Israel is striking Iran all the time. And the US president tweeted something that blew me away. I think that every Bible prophecy lover and reader and believer should be amazed. He tweeted the following thing: "We will fight where it is our benefit and only fight to win." And look what he said: Turkey, Europe, Syria, Iran, Iraq, Russia, and the Kurds will now have to figure the situation out all by themselves. America basically said, we have no interest in solving decades or generation-long conflicts between tribes and between countries over there. If it's not within our benefit or our interest, and right now America has no interest over there. America doesn't need the Arab world anymore. America is the largest exporter of oil in the world. If anything, we benefit from all of these shenanigans there because America's oil export is growing bigger and bigger.
Okay, so I'm going to stop that, stop this right now, and
not going
bring
to
this back up. So what he's saying basically is, I mean, you heard it. He thinks that what President Trump was just was a wonderful thing, that it was the best decision. We don't need the Middle East like we used to. We have this prophecy. He's talking about Ezekiel 38 and 39. For President Trump saying, unless it's something to do with our interests, we're not going to go in there. We don't have any interest in Syria. We don't have anything in there that we need to get involved in. And eventually, you know, that will be Ezekiel 38 and 39. Now, what else he said that I couldn't bring up for you because it didn't start at the right place, unfortunately, is he said that another thing that President Trump did was absolutely amazing. And that is the fact that when you take all of these people that are coming, all these Kurds and all these people that were sitting there in northern Syria, those people are Sunnis. What does that mean? They're going to go into Syria. They're going to sit there. Who is that going to be a thorn in the side of? Iran. Iran are Shias. They don't like the Sunnis. And so, as Amir was saying, the great thing is, you know, Iran has had time to go out and attack the Saudi Arabian oil fields. Iran has had time to go out and do other things and to bother other people and to think about going into Israel. You put the Sunnis in there, and they're going to have to deal with the Sunnis, and they don't want to have to do that. So it's going to be a good thing. I'm so glad we're starting to get clarity on this situation. It sounded bad in the beginning, but I waited to have an opinion until facts were presented. I was deeply disturbed at the instant backlash to this small move. Exactly, Tress. Hey, JVA, good to see you. And see, that's what I'm trying to tell you today. All of this pomp and circumstance is coming from our media. It's coming from Iran will have to deal with them. That's right, Grateful Mike. And Iran will be kept busy dealing with them and won't have time to come in and think about going into Israel, at least for now, or going into, bombing the tankers in Saudi Arabia or whatever they were doing. They've had plenty of time to do it. Now, if I can bring this up for you too, I want to show you what Rand Paul, somebody had mentioned that, what Rand Paul said. So let me see if I can get this up and refresh this and get this going. It's a very short clip. Ron Paul makes sense here in what he's saying. Rand Paul, sorry. Let me bring this up for you. And I think sometimes we have to listen to other people again and their different perspectives, and they see things that we don't necessarily see, and can bring us a different point of view about what's really going on. And Rand Paul seems to be more of the quieter person that just comes up and tries to stay out of government interference for one thing, and doesn't look like I'm going to be able to bring him up either. These were all set, but I somehow the Fox not Fox, but YouTube changes it. Well, in other words, I'll try one more time, see if he comes up. Rand Paul was basically saying that he thought what President Trump was just amazing, that it was the absolute right thing to do, and he couldn't understand why people were against it, that there was no reason to be against it, because it put the Sunnis in. Oh, here we go. I can finally get it. Believe so. Anyway, we'll try this
question, since you're one of the very few elected officials in Washington who appears to be at least sympathetic to the president's position that we ought to pull troops out of northern Syria. Why has the response been bipartisan and outraged, almost universal here? Everyone hates this idea.
It's sort of one of the strange compromises in Washington. They all seem to be in favor of continued intervention everywhere. They never believe you can come home. When President Trump talked about coming home from Afghanistan, the immediate response was it would be precipitous. And I'm like, 19 years and it's precipitous to come home. So really, it's really appalling, but there seems to be almost nobody really looking at the situation. But we'll tell you one extraordinary thing. For months, I've been saying, you know what, the best chance the Syrian Kurds have is actually making an alliance with Assad to protect them against the Kurds. That's already happening. As we speak, they're beginning to have an alliance. Their best chance of having some kind of autonomous zone is being part of Syria and reassuring Turkey that they're not going to be making incursions into Turkey. That's what happened in Iraq. There is a semi-autonomous region for the Kurds, but they're within the government of Iraq, and they've gotten the assurity that they're not going to invade into Turkey. Interestingly, there are 1,800 Turkish businesses in Kurdistan, the Kurdish area of Iraq now, and they actually are getting along pretty well. That could happen in Syria too, but we've prevented it because we keep saying you can't talk to Assad, Assad must go, but really you probably do have to eventually talk to Assad to have peace there.
Of course. It's not.
And you see that, I mean, that's why when Obama moved in there into Syria, that's what Obama wanted to do. He wanted to do regime change. And all of those people are used to champs. We will rejoice when our King Yeshua. See, and people like Lindsey Graham, Mitch McConnell, Nancy Pelosi, all the neocons, all the rhinos, they wanted regime change. And President Trump, he's not interested in a regime change. He never was interested in a regime change. Liz said, Amir is not American, has a true perspective of what's going on. He was an official in the Israeli government. Yes, he was in the IDF. So he does understand what's going on. And I think this is, again, it's really good that we get to hear all these different people that mainstream media is not going to talk to you about, because they want it to look like that President Trump did something that was so outlandish, so horrible, and extermination of people are coming. And what the Kurds have already, like Rand Paul said, they've already started having an alliance with Syria so they can carve out a place for themselves in Syria. Problem solved. Turkey got what they want. Syria should get what they want, and having the Kurds there. And the problems are all solved. There was no conflict, no war. Nothing had to happen. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about, and I know we're kind of running out of time to go to other subjects, but this is such an important subject. This may be the only one we talk about. Carolyn Glick, who is an award-winning columnist and author of The Israeli Solutions, a one-state plan for peace in the Middle East, she wrote about this, and she said that basically one of the things that that we keep thinking is that we're some major influence in Syria, and we're not, and we've never been, and President Trump didn't want us to be. No, OBL, you missed the whole point and you missed the whole show. So you need to go back and watch it instead of just talking out of turn and saying things. We proved why that Trump did not betray anybody. So in other words, also one of the things that Carolyn Glick said at the very end, she said that despite the compelling, ever-growing body of evidence, that the time has come to reassess our relationship with Turkey. And that's what we've been talking about. We need to maybe perhaps reassess that right now the Pentagon refuses to engage in that conversation. So until the Pentagon, until Congress, until somebody else has that conversation, Turkey is still going to be our ally. And that there's, if President Trump had done anything like that, if he had gone in and had a conflict with Turkey, it would have been the most ridiculous and worst thing that he could have ever done. And so President Trump, once again, being smart and not being a politician, not being a neocon, not being the one who wants to start wars, but to basically solve conflicts by financial and economic sanctions. That's what he's done. He's going to send Vice President Pence over there. They're going to negotiate a ceasefire and tell Turkey, look, it's time for you to stop. So again, I think if you let people know what's going on and what they're going to be seeing now is the Democrats like Schumer saying, oh, sanctions are all fine and good, but we need for you to reverse that decision. We need for you to put everything back in the way it was. So in other words, let's leave everything the way it was. Let's continue to pay money. Let's continue to put troops over there in Syria. Let's keep going where we're going. And see what we've learned today. I hope you've learned that. I hope I've said this to you in good enough terms that you can understand what I was saying, is that, like I said, I hope I got my point across, is that this is brilliant. What President Trump has done is actually brilliant. And it puts... There's no conflict. There's no taking our troops over there. And it's time to bring the remaining troops, which is about 1,000, back from Syria and not putting troops in there. I hope President Trump doesn't, cave into these people, meaning the left. I don't think he will. No matter what Trump does, the left will always say something negative. Absolutely. Absolutely. But you're going to hear how, oh, this is horrible. Like I heard today, Russia's patrolling in northern Syria. Russia's been in Syria since the beginning of this, okay? Since about 2011. Russia's not going anywhere because Obama let him in and he's not leaving. And so it's time for them to take care of everything that they need to take care of. Very clear thinking. Good, Liz. I'm so glad because I thought it was so important, because in the very beginning, I wasn't sure about all of this either. I put it all together. I wanted, this is when it all first started. I wanted to know the truth. I wanted to know more than what was being told to me by the mainstream media because I knew it wasn't true. You have made it perfectly clear right on, Susan. Thank you, Linda. Thank you. Now, in the time remaining that we have, I'm going to quickly go through this because this is very important. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about why it is so important that President Trump never fall for the red flag laws. So I'm switching gears now. We've left the Middle East. We're going over here into the war zone in California. And California the other day proved beyond a shadow of a doubt why President Trump should never agree. Amanda said, yes, thank you, Susan. Someone has to clear this up. Thank you, Amanda. Please share this with everyone so it will be clear for them. President Trump should I know that the left was trying to get him to agree to red flag laws. Red flag laws, in case you're not familiar with them, they're basically gun violence restraining laws that take away your firearms before a hearing can be held. So, in other words, if somebody says, I think that you are acting a little funny, I know you have firearms, I'm going to go into court, I'm going to tell them that I think you're a threat to yourself or others, and they will come, if the court agrees to it, the court will come and take your firearms away from you. In the beginning in California, this was only for close relationships like family and the police, for troubled individuals. In California, and this is what everybody was trying to warn President Trump about, red flag laws can be expanded. And when that happens, there's more damage. And that just happened. Gavin Newsom, our crazy governor in California, signed a law that's beginning September 1, 2020. Teachers, school administrators, employees, and co-workers can go into court and ask for your weapons to be removed from you because they think you're a threat to self or others. Now think about the ramifications of that. You have an argument with the coworker. Coworker's like, I didn't like what you said. I'm going to go, let's just say I hate you enough, right? I'm going to go into court and I'm going to say, I think Susan over there needs to have her weapons taken away from her because she had an argument with me and I'm just not feeling too safe around her now. And so they come and they take your weapons away if the court agrees to it. And then you, as the person who had your weapons taken away, you're the one that has to tell the court why they should give you back your guns. It's very hard to prove that. So again, that's another reason that President Trump should never, ever fall for that, because that's exactly what the left would want you to do. They would want you to get involved in that, thinking that, wow, this is pretty good. It's not so bad. These, your family members maybe ought to be able to go in and do that. But then, whammy, here it comes, and somebody else that's supposedly close to you is taking your guns away. Now, this is a representative in California, Eric Swalwell, who the other day said this: please tell me this lunatic does not own a gun. Reason number 1,578, America needs red flag laws. The lunatic he was talking about was Ben Shapiro. How soon before we get to a point in some of these laws, like these red flag laws, that maybe a representative in Congress can say, I think this person needs his guns taken away. I think Ben Shapiro needs to have his guns taken away. And I always say, it just because it's happening in California, don't think it's just going to stay there. Yeah, teacher asked student, does dad have a gun? Yeah, exactly, General Eaton. Things like that they start encroaching on your Second Amendment rights, and that's exactly why the president should never fall for it. Now, the last topic that I want to talk about, this is pretty serious. We are seeing how the judges have started basically taking over. The federal judges have started taking over and controlling the executive branch. This is very dangerous. Now, who are these? Let me show you some of these judges. This is a federal district court judge, and her name is, I think, Phyllis Hamilton. She is one of the judges, and this is another one, Rosanna Maloof Peterson, and another one, George Daniels. Now, let's talk about that for a second. What do all of these judges have in common? They were appointed by Democrat presidents. Clinton, for a couple of them there, but they were appointed by the Democrats. Now, what have they done? They have basically recently blocked President Trump's ability to put in place the public charge rule. This is impacting our border and who comes across it. As you may recall, President Trump wanted only those people to be able to come here. This does not include people who are seeking asylum, but other people who are trying to come here, and he wanted to make sure that they're going to be able to support themselves financially without becoming wards of the government. And so President Trump was going to enact today, was going to start today, the public charge rule. These judges have put in place a nationwide ban that says, sorry, you can't do that. And they're even asking some of the plaintiffs, what do you think the preliminary injunction should be? What injunction are you asking for? The court's asking for their suggestions on what they think should be put in place. Not the judge, what he or she thinks, but what these people who are bringing the lawsuit. I mean, that's crazy. This is one of them on Friday. This was a judge in Texas. And coming against El Paso County and Border Network for Human Rights. And that judge is saying, why don't you go ahead and you propose the scope for injunction? And that was David Briones, Briones. And I'll tell you, the only people so far that seem to be helping us and helping President Trump protect America by protecting our borders and by protecting the taxpayers from having to pay for people coming into our country that are going to end up on welfare, and that there's no doubt they're going to end up on welfare, is the Mexican military National Guard. And I know that sounds funny that people in America aren't helping President Trump, but it's actually the Mexico National Guard. On Saturday, the Mexican troops, the Mexico National Guard military, turned away about 2,000 people who were on their way here in another caravan. These people were coming from Africa, the Caribbean, and Central America. And really the only thing that saved us, and I'm saying this jokingly, is that those members of the National Guard down there in Mexico weren't appointed by Democrat judges. Because otherwise, they would probably just be coming. And again, look at what President Trump did. He set that up. He got these people in Mexico to work with us to protect their borders, which in turn protected our borders. Goes back to the whole Turkey, Syria, Kurd thing. Maggie said, California federal courts have done nothing but obstruct every effort by the president has tried to do. What makes anyone think they would be fair and unbiased? Absolutely. Absolutely. Nothing fair, nothing unbiased. And they'll keep doing that. And this again, too, is why it's so important for the president to have in place those people, those judges that he wants to put in place, or things like this are going to keep happening. Our borders are continuing to be open, and we are continuing to see the court system, the federal district court judges specifically, mainly, control the executive branch and controlling what happens to immigration. They are making laws, which is not a part of what they should do. It's not a part of their powers. That belongs to the Congress. But we see them taking over the executive branch. And until such time as we get the people in the court system that we need to get in there, this is going to, I'm afraid, continue to happen. And what this does is this requires every time that the president has to appeal. And then if he loses at that point, he has to go into the Supreme Court. It's a mess. It's a real mess. And it shouldn't be that way. There's absolutely no reason that the president shouldn't be able to do what he's doing. The only reason that he's not is because it's President Trump. Let's face it. That's the only reason it's President Trump. So anyway, well, I made it through all of it. I don't know how I got that all in an hour. Any questions or comments before we go? And I thank you so much today for your comments and your questions. Montana checking in. Thanks for this important info. Very much appreciated. Thank you, Wanda. And again, it's so important for you to share this with your friends and your family, with everybody. Share it by email. Share it any way you can. Because if you don't, again, it's making it, with the impeachment going on and now this going on and other things coming up, it makes people believe that President Trump is doing wrong and doing bad things, and he's not. Kelly said, when Congress behaves flawlessly, the states will follow. Eternity, I agree with Wanda. Thank you, Eternity. He says, thank God backs our man and his judges. Our man is suspended again, Maryland said. Lawlessness, Kelly said, yeah, that's what happens. And that's why we need to tell everybody. Yeah, buy Susan's book, General Eaton said. Oh, yeah. I have several books, haven't written one on this, but I may, just so that people will understand it, because it's so important. We need to get the word out about our president. The president continues over and over again to show us that he's doing everything for us. And I know we shouldn't take his word for it. We should do the research on it, but we shouldn't jump to conclusions. And I think people are too quick to jump to conclusions. I don't follow blindly this president. I go do my research. I put it all together, and then each and every time it backs it up. But I have heard pastors that have come against this president and his moves, and I've been very disappointed. I've heard other people come against him and say that, and it's very disappointing. If they had gone out and done the work and done the research, they would have known that what President Trump did once again was brilliant. It was brilliant. And I don't think everything that President Trump does is brilliant, but this move was brilliant. It avoids conflict. It avoids war. It keeps Iran busy. It brings our troops home. It sanctions Turkey for their actions, and probably most likely will stop them doing what they're doing when Pence gets there and tells them what other sanctions are coming. It's all great. And God is still in control of all of it. Always share. Bless you, Susan. Such a good program. Trump 2020. Absolutely. Love you, sis. Marilyn says, thank you guys so much. All of you for being here. I so appreciate it. Thank you for being here, knowing and supporting me today, knowing that I was going to be solo. Next week, we'll have Bill back. Until then, God bless you. We'll see you then. Take care.